The pain of shattered bones reassembling, the agony of bloodline transformation. After 5 days and 5 nights of hellish torment, the 10 men fell into a deep slumber. Finally, on the 6th day, everything fell silent. After observing their condition, Shinlang ordered Wuai to lead her female generals into the secret chamber to wash the filth and blood from their bodies and apply medicine to their wounds. And so, after sleeping for 2 full days, they finally began to open their eyes one by one. As they sat up, an unprecedented feeling of lightness spread through their entire bodies, and they could feel an abundant power surging within them. Just as one of them subconsciously tried to stand up, he pushed off with his feet and shot into the air like an arrow released from a bow. The man was stunned by his own light body. What's happening? How am I flying? Seeing this, his brothers around him also stood up one after another, and they all let out thunderous cries of astonishment at the same time. My hand, my back can stand straight. The pain in my joints is gone. Just as the men were overcome with excitement, Kui-chen walked over carrying a large mirror. Come and see what you look like now. The men turned to look, and in an instant, their eyes were filled with shock. Is this really me? Our bodies and faces, they've actually returned to normal. Overwhelmed with emotion, the men couldn't help but weep with joy. For the past dozen years, because of their disabilities, they had not only endured physical suffering worse than death every day but also had to bear the insults and scorn of outsiders. Now that they had finally regained their healthy bodies, their excitement was simply beyond words. Just then, Kui-chen spoke again. From now on, you are no longer homeless men begging on the streets, but true leader of 100 households, officers in the 5th Prince's mansion. I hope you will always remember who gave you this new life. From this day forward, if anyone dares to betray their oath, I, Kui-chen, will execute them on the spot. With that, he turned and led the men to kneel before Ning Jing, leader of 1,000 households. Kui-chen, leading the generals, swears an oath here to be forever loyal to the 5th Prince, forever loyal to young Master Shin. We will never betray you in this life. Hearing this, Shinlang's gaze swept over the 10 men before him and said, now that you have returned to normal, follow leader of 1,000 households Ku and train well, so that you can serve the 5th Prince as soon as possible. In the past, because you were all beggars and homeless, you had no names. But from now on, under my, Shinlang's, leadership, you will surely rise to become generals, or even a regional commander. Therefore, since Madman Lan is your eldest brother, you will all take his surname, Lan. You will be called Lan 1, Lan 2, and so on, up to Lan 10. As his words fell, Ning Jing, standing beside him, couldn't help but lean over and whisper, Shinlang, isn't your naming a bit too careless? It's a bit like naming cats and dogs. Hearing this, Shinlang shook his head. This is perfect. Names like these will constantly remind them that they are brothers, that they will always belong to one body, and that they should never betray each other. He then looked at the men and continued, I won't say any more. In just over 20 days, the Yu Kingdom's special imperial military examination will begin. If you can pass with high marks this time, the 5th Prince will have the official qualification to contend for the succession. Conversely, if you fail, His Highness will surely have you all killed, and I will be driven back to mythical Turtle City with my tail between my legs. I do not wish for this to happen. Therefore, from this day on, we are bound together in life and death. We will flourish together and fall together. As his voice fell, the 10 Lan brothers responded with a resounding and powerful shout. We will do our utmost and will not fail the 5th Prince and young Master Shin. Immediately, Kui-chen stood up and roared, all of you, listen to my command. Change your clothes and go eat immediately. In half an hour, training officially begins. The intensity of the training over the next few days completely stunned Shinlang and the others. The training lasted for 18 hours a day, and the time for eating, drinking, sleeping, and other necessities barely added up to 3 hours. Although the training was lethal, the results were astonishing. Ever since the Lan brothers' bloodlines were activated, each day of their training was equivalent to a year of training for an ordinary martial artist. Lifting a 50-kilogram weight with one hand was child's play for them. Everyone was especially shocked when they saw them easily master a super crossbow with a draw weight equivalent to 200 pounds in modern terms in just a few days. Their jaws nearly hit the floor. Previously, Kui-chen had only been getting them accustomed to the training intensity. Now, the real professional training began. The required distance for the archery portion of the military examination was 120 paces, about 85 meters, but Kui-chen directly set the starting training distance at 150 paces. An ordinary martial artist could shoot 100 arrows at most in a day's training, but his requirement for the Lan brothers was that they must shoot 500 arrows with full force every morning, and they were not allowed to rest if they were even one arrow short. Shinlang wasn't idle either. The Lan brothers expended a huge amount of physical energy during the day, so at night, he had people prepare a special medicinal bath for them. Soaking in it for one night not only allowed them to fully recover their strength but also further nourished their bloodlines. In this way, they focused on archery in the morning and practiced horsemanship in the afternoon. In just 10 days, they were able to perform skilled archery on horseback, truly achieving a state of unity between man and horse. During the weekly test, they all achieved stability, accuracy, and ferocity. This rapid advancement in their martial prowess instantly attracted the envious gazes of Wuai and the other female generals. In portion 13, his mentality once again fell into self-doubt. When Big Fool had first displayed his martial prowess. He had suffered a blow, and now 10 martial arts geniuses had suddenly appeared. He couldn't help but wonder if there was any point in continuing to practice martial arts. The more he thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt, and he couldn't help but complain. This world is too unfair. These geniuses with bloodline talents make progress by leaps and bounds, but who considers the feelings of us ordinary martial artists? Seeing this, Wuai couldn't help but comfort him. 13. Why do you always compare yourself to these geniuses? Have you ever thought that compared to your young master Shin, you, Shin 13, are also a top-notch martial arts genius? Hearing this, Shin 13 looked in Shinlang's direction. His master, a weakling with clumsy limbs, could probably be beaten to a pulp by any random martial artist, but when it came to brains, if his master claimed to be the second best in the world, no one would dare claim to be the first, right? Time flows like water, and the years pass like a shuttle. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 days had quietly passed, and there were only 2 days left before the special imperial civil examination. As for Madman Lan, he had already memorized the 1,000+ policy essays and poems that Shinlang had prepared for him 13 days ago, knowing them by heart. Not only that, but he also used the remaining time to write 10 policy essays and 20 poems as Shinlang had requested. Ning Jing looked at the policy essays in his hand and couldn't help but remark, the writing is indeed good. Looking at just one piece, it is truly brilliant, but after reading 10 in a row, one feels a bit numb. Beside him, Shinlang asked, in your highness's opinion, can Lan Ling make it into the top 3? Ning Jing pondered for a moment and said, I have read the top 3 policy essays from past imperial examinations in the capital, and their brilliance is far from matching Lan Ling's. The phrases he uses are too exquisite, and the allusions he employs always cleverly fit the theme. In my opinion, it's a sure bet that he will enter the top 3 in this special examination. If he performs exceptionally well, it's not impossible for him to take the top spot. Hearing this, Shinlang felt a wave of relief. Regardless of whether he could win the top prize, as long as he was stable in the top 3, it was great news. Besides, the sovereign's original requirement was only to pass. Now, with Madman Lan's policy essays and poems, it was absolutely certain that he would be on the list. As for his other 10 brothers, he instantly thought of what Kui-chen had said to him the day before. Young Master Shin, you can take Lan Ling to the capital for the examination first. We will definitely arrive before the military examination begins. You can rest assured about this side. My requirement for them is not just to pass. The soldiers I train must be able to crush the competition and stun everyone. What's more, with their bloodline talent, if they can't even pass the military graduate examination, they might as well go jump into the New River and die. Thinking of this, Shinlang couldn't help but smile to himself. People with real abilities really have the capital to speak with arrogance. The next morning, Shinlang led Wuai and the other female generals to escort Madman Lan to the capital to participate in the special imperial civil examination. Crown Prince, Third Prince, and all the idiots in the capital. An even more stunning miracle is about to unfold. Just you wait to have your minds blown. I hope you'll remember our bet then. I've already dug the cesspool. If I, Shinlang, succeed in getting these 11 people on the honor roll of the special examination, I'll definitely throw you all in. While Shinlang and his party were heading to the capital, Zhang Chong had already led his troops into the city. To solidify Zhang Chong's support for him, the Crown Prince, Ning Yi, personally went to the Vermilion Bird Gate to welcome him. Compared to the deserted reception Shinlang received upon his return to the capital, his procession this time was incredibly grand. After completing the ceremony and entering the palace, Zhang Chong went directly to the sovereign's study and knelt in waiting. It wasn't until over an hour later that the sovereign walked into the study, fuming with anger. Of course, this anger was not directed at Zhang Chong, but at the censors in the court. These damn old diehards are insane. The special examination starts tomorrow. Yet today they were in court frantically impeaching Shinlang, saying that letting beggars take the exam is an unprecedented absurdity. Isn't that just pointing fingers at me, calling me a muddle-headed ruler who listens to every gust of wind? If it weren't for the imminent special examination, he would have severely punished a few censors to set an example. In the Chu kingdom, that old scoundrel, the king of Chu, is still haggling with me and refusing to withdraw his troops. The more I think about it, the more infuriating it is. As he was fuming, his peripheral vision caught sight of Zhang Chong kneeling at his side. He was momentarily taken aback, then quickly composed his angry expression and smiled. Minister Zhang, you have come. You have worked hard on this expedition. How is White Knight County now? Hearing this, Zhang Chong first bowed and then said, Thank you for your majesty's concern. All is well in White Knight County. This response immediately startled the sovereign. Zhang Chong had always been cautious with his words. For him to say all is well meant that things were truly very good. His gaze instantly swept sharply over Zhang Chong. That boy Shinlang is quite generous, eliminating the three-eyed evil horse bandits, purging the Su family's partisans, and even controlling the smallpox epidemic within the county, quelling it swiftly with minimal casualties. He gave all the credit for such a monumental achievement to you, while he deliberately played the villain. At this moment, seeing the sovereign's silence, Zhang Chong continued, Your Majesty, I dare not take credit for the battle in White Knight County. Without young Master Shin's full support, it would have been impossible to clear up the chaos in such a short time. Hearing these words, Ning Yuanxian smiled smiled meaningfully. With one swing of his butcher's knife, he slaughtered all the filth. How could it not be clean? With that, he sat down at the desk and continued, "Alright, let's get down to business. The negotiations with the Chu Kingdom are more difficult than expected. They have gone back on all their previous promises. That old fellow, the King of Chu, not only refuses to apologize and compensate, but he is also holding on to the captured fortress and refusing to return it. What are your thoughts on this?" Zhang Chong replied, "In my opinion, this matter is likely related to noble Lord Jin of the Southern Ouyang Kingdom. This man has great ambitions. I believe we need to send more troops to the Southern Ouyang battlefield." As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Yuanxian's brows furrowed tightly. He knew that there were already 40 to 50,000 troops stationed on the Southern Ouyang battlefield. Why would Zhang Chong want to send more? But he remained calm and asked, "Then in Minister Zhang's opinion, how many more troops should be sent?" Zhang Chong pondered for a moment and replied solemnly, "In my opinion, we need an army of 150,000. Hearing this, the sovereign was greatly alarmed. "Zhang Chong, are you mad? In the war between the Wu and Yu kingdoms back then, the total force was only about 200,000. Now, facing a small country like Southern Ouyang, you want me to send another 150,000 troops?" Zhang Chong explained, "Your Majesty, the opponents we face in the south are not just noble Lord Jin's rebel army, but the entire Sand Barbarian tribe. This battle must be an all-or-nothing effort to annihilate them in one fell swoop. I even feel that 150,000 troops might not be enough." After he spoke, the sovereign frowned deeply but did not reply. He knew his own affairs best. The national treasury was already empty, and he owed the Hidden Origin Society an astronomical debt. He simply did not have the financial resources to support another major war. After a moment of silence, Ning Yuanxian tapped the table and changed the subject. "Zhang Chong, although you are the prefect of White Knight County in the Western Celestial Province, you also hold the position of commander of the Western Celestial Province. Now, the Crown Prince has recommended you for the position of Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province. What are your own thoughts?" Hearing this, Zhang Chong fell silent. He certainly understood the reason. Now that the credit for eliminating Su Nan had fallen on his head, the Crown Prince and the Zhu family were taking advantage of the situation to establish him as the new banner of their faction. Although the Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province was not comparable to the Grand Commanders of the Northern Sky and Southern Journey provinces, it was still one of the 4 great viceroys of the Yu Kingdom. Once he took this position, he could return to the capital in a few years, enter the Ministry of State Affairs, and be promoted to Prime Minister, and everything would be set. At that time, Zhu Rong would be the first Prime Minister, and he, Zhang Chong, would be at least the 3rd-ranking Prime Minister, a future giant of the court. However, if he really accepted this position, he would become Shinlang's enemy. Zhang Chong slowly knelt down and kowtowed. "I thank His Highness for his grace, but the position of Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province is of utmost importance, and I fear I am not competent enough for it. I do not wish to be an enemy of young Master Shin." Zhang Chong's words stunned the sovereign. What does he mean? This old fox Zhang Chong actually refused the opportunity to become a viceroy? And aren't you a direct subordinate of the Crown Prince? Are you trying to defect? Thinking of this, the sovereign sneered coldly. "Shinlang helping Ning Jing in his bid for the throne is still up in the air. You might not even have the chance to be his enemy. Besides, court positions have always been one man to one post. If you don't want this position of Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province, there won't be another one of equal weight for you." After hearing this, Zhang Chong's tone remained firm. "I understand all that." Seeing this, Ning Yuanxian's displeasure grew, and he said sarcastically, "In that case, you can go home first. It's just that there are probably many people at your home eagerly awaiting your return, but unfortunately, they are about to be disappointed." Zhang Chong still did not respond, only saying without raising his head, "Then I will take my leave." Feeling Zhang Chong leave from behind, Ning Yuanxian couldn't help but think to himself, this Shinlang really has some skills to be able to win over an old fox like Zhang Chong. But even if he is unwilling, the position of Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province must be appointed to someone from the Crown Prince's faction. Zhang Chong, in order not to become an enemy of Shinlang, was willing to offend the Crown Prince and refuse the position of Central Commander of the Western Celestial Province that the sovereign had offered him. But as he sat in his carriage, recalling the sovereign's cold and sarcastic attitude, he couldn't help but sigh to himself. He had clearly achieved such a great merit, and although he had gained His Majesty's appreciation, he could never be as close to him as Shinlang was. After all, he could not be as unrestrained in His Majesty's presence as Shinlang was. Just as he was lamenting, the old steward's voice came from outside the carriage. "Master, are we going back to the mansion now?" Hearing this, Zhang Chong fell silent. Should he go back? The contrast between the deserted mansion when he was imprisoned and the bustling scene upon his triumphant return was truly too ironic. What kind of faces would these people make when they learned that he had not accepted the position of Central Commander? Thinking of this, he said directly, "Not for now. Turn around and go to the 5th Prince's mansion." As soon as these words were spoken, the old steward thought he had misheard and hurried to the front of the carriage to ask, "Are we really going to the 5th Prince's residence? If we go, we will completely offend the Crown Prince." Zhang Chong heard this and said seriously, "It's alright. Since I have already made my decision, I am not afraid of offending anyone else." Half a moment later, the old steward drove the carriage to the Marquis of Chongping's mansion. At this time, he saw that there were over 1,000 people blocking the entrance, noisily holding banners and demanding an explanation. Zhang Chong saw this and quickly asked for the reason. What is going on here? The old steward explained that young Master Shin recruited 11 beggars to participate in the special examination, which has angered these scholars and military academy students. They have been besieging the 5th Prince Ning Jing's mansion, insisting on forcing young Master Shin to come out and confess his crime, and also demanding that the 11 beggars be sent to the Court of Judicial Review's prison. Hearing this, Zhang Chong was not surprised. After all, ever since he started working with Shinlang, everything the other party did, though seemingly wild and unrestrained, had its own logic. Let's go. We'll go around to the back gate and enter the mansion. However, as soon as he got out of the carriage and came to the back gate, he found that this group of people had blocked both the front and back gates. At this moment, someone with sharp eyes saw Zhang Chong and shouted excitedly, "Everyone, look, it's Lord Zhang Chong. He has come to help us condemn Shinlang." Before the words had even faded, all the scholars swarmed forward and surrounded Zhang Chong. "Lord Zhang, you are a high official of the court and a model of Confucianism. Shinlang has used a group of beggars to desecrate the most holy sage. You must seek justice for us. If this man is not eliminated, it is simply against all reason." Hearing the words "against all reason," Zhang Chong's eyes swept coldly over the people before him. They were truly fearless fools. It seemed they had forgotten Shinlang's ruthless methods in White Knight County not long ago. Immediately, he ignored the crowd and walked straight to the back gate, knocking on it himself and shouting, "I, Zhang Chong, have come to visit. Please trouble yourselves to open the door." After a long while, a female general opened the door with great impatience. When she saw it was Zhang Chong, she was startled. "Lord Zhang, what brings you here?" Zhang Chong cupped his hands and said, "I have just returned to the capital and have come specially to pay my respects to the 5th Prince and young Master Shin." The female general's face showed a hint of apology. "The 5th Prince and the young master have not yet returned. If Lord Zhang is not in a hurry, why not come in and wait?" Meanwhile, in front of the mythical Turtle Gate, Shinlang was leading several dozen people, swaggering into the capital, instantly causing a huge uproar. Countless people swarmed out, wanting to besiege Shinlang. Some even broke through the female general's blockade and rushed up to Shinlang, hurling insults at him. "Shinlang, what are you? How dare you let beggars take the special examination with us? For you to commit such a rebellious act, you are a criminal of this world and should be executed along with those beggars." Hearing these words, a cold glint flashed in Shinlang's eyes. "A bunch of fools who only know how to read dead books. Since you love to cause a scene so much, why not help me cause one for the sovereign, to force him to clarify his position?" Thinking of this, he laughed loudly and said, "Everyone, the ones you should be besieging today are not me, but the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Military Affairs. You can all go to them and make your demands. If they don't cancel the examination qualifications of Madman Lan and the others, you will all go on strike." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd began to whisper among themselves, "This Shinlang fellow seems to be making a lot of sense. If we all go on strike, the special examination will definitely not be able to be held. At that time, the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Military Affairs will surely compromise." After some discussion, the crowd immediately reached a consensus, and then, shouting slogans, they surged towards the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Military Affairs. Seeing this, Shinlang couldn't help but sneer. Fools are really easy to fool. Just then, Wuai came to report, "Young master, Lord Zhang has been waiting for you in the mansion for a long time." Hearing this, Shinlang was taken aback. Zhang Chong had returned to the capital so quickly, he immediately quickened his pace and walked into the mansion. As soon as he saw him, he greeted him with joy. "Lord Zhang, long time no see. Why did you come here as soon as you returned?" Zhang Chong smiled a little embarrassedly. "I'm afraid I've made a fool of myself, young Master Shin. The mansion is so crowded, I didn't dare to go back." Shinlang understood at once and immediately took out one of Madman Lan's policy essays, saying, "In that case, please help me look at this article." Zhang Chong took the work with a puzzled expression, but after reading only the first paragraph, he was amazed by the content. Good writing, truly brilliant and good writing. It wasn't until a long while later that he silently placed the article on the desk. Shinlang immediately asked, "What are your thoughts after reading it, Lord Zhang?" Zhang Chong said seriously, "I'm afraid this article was not written by young Master Shin, was it?" Hearing this, Shinlang's eyebrows raised slightly. "How did Lord Zhang know?" Zhang Chong smiled. "Young Master Shin's works have always been unconventional and unrestrained. This policy essay, on the other hand, has a stunning opening and uses allusions with precision and cleverness. Although there are no apparent flaws or mistakes throughout, as I read on, I felt something was missing." Hearing this, Shinlang couldn't help but admire in his heart. Zhang Chong was truly a great scholar of the nation. He could see the flaws in Madman Lan's policy essay at a glance. Immediately after, Shinlang asked, "In Lord Zhang's opinion, can this policy essay make the list in this special examination?" Zhang Chong smiled and said, "More than enough. Policy essays like this, with precise openings and stunning phrasing, are the safest bet. Not only can they make the list, but there's a 60% chance they could even enter the top 3. It's just that getting first place is probably impossible. After all, Zhu Rong's 5th son, Zhu Hongping, is publicly recognized as the #1 genius youth in the capital, and his essays are of a higher level than this one. However, young Master Shin, his tone changed. This policy essay wasn't written by that madman Lan, was it? Shinlang chuckled. It was written by Lan Ling. Hearing this, Zhang Chong was taken aback. He immediately picked up the article and looked at it again, then exclaimed in admiration, "It's incredible to be able to write such an article in just 1 month. It's not an overstatement to call him a peerless genius." Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. "Why isn't the 5th prince here? Is he not in the mansion?" Shinlang said helplessly, "He is, but he was afraid of making things difficult for you, so he didn't come to see you. After all, you are a key minister of the Crown Prince's faction." Hearing this, Zhang Chong couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. "The 5th prince is truly a gentleman. However, I have already politely declined his majesty in the palace and did not accept the position of central commander of the Western Celestial Province." As soon as these words were spoken, Shinlang was greatly shocked. The Crown Prince recommended him, yet Zhang Chong refused. This was clearly telling the Crown Prince openly that he was defecting from the Eastern Palace. In that case, how could the Crown Prince and the Zhu family tolerate the emergence of a powerful rival? Thinking of this, Shinlang immediately stood up and bowed to Zhang Chong. "It has been difficult for you, Lord Zhang. I'm afraid you will now face a strong backlash from the Crown Prince's faction. But please rest assured, although His Majesty finds me talkative, he has always been able to listen to my words. I will definitely speak for you before him this time." Of course, Shinlang did not say it out loud, but the last time His Majesty was furious, Zhang Chong had suffered imprisonment. This time, if the Crown Prince and the Zhu family joined forces to attack him, the kind of calamity he would face would depend entirely on the sovereign's will. And how could Zhang Chong not have thought of this consequence? But he still stood up and returned the bow. "Then I will thank young Master Shin in advance. But please also rest assured, once I, Zhang Chong, have made a decision, I will never regret it, even if I have to risk my life later on." Outside the Ministry of Military Affairs, tens of thousands of scholars and military academy students gathered to petition, demanding the cancellation of the examination qualifications of Madman Lan and the others. They even threatened with a letter written in blood that if their demands were not met, they would all go on strike. And this blood letter they submitted was soon presented to the sovereign Ning Yuanxian by the deputy of the Ministry of Military Affairs. At this moment, looking at the blood letter on the desk, Ning Yuanxian was furious. "Very well, I had originally set up this special examination this year to celebrate the great victory in the Western Celestial Province. I never thought you scholars and military academy students would not only be ungrateful but also dare to pressure the palace. If before he was already annoyed by the daily impeachment of Shinlang by the censors in court, now this pressure from tens of thousands of people had completely ignited the fire in his heart. You are not satisfied with Shinlang, are you? I will make you compete with that group of beggars." Immediately, he stood up and roared, "Relay my decree. Anyone who participates in this strike will be stripped of all their official titles and will be forever barred from participating in any imperial examinations. Immediately dispatch the Imperial Guard. Anyone who dares to block the Ministry of Military Affairs or the Ministry of Rights, regardless of their status, will be arrested and imprisoned." What to do? Once the decree was issued, the scholars and military academy students, who had been so aggressive just a moment ago, instantly lost their spirit. Even though they still had complaints in their hearts, they could only disperse dejectedly and return to their respective homes. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, there was only 1 day left until the start of the special examination. This time, the number of candidates participating in the civil examination in the capital alone was over 3,000. The examination content was divided into 3 parts: scriptural recitation and arithmetic, current affairs policy, and poetry and prose. The examination would last for 2.5 days. In the early morning, Wuai, following Shinlang's instructions, escorted Madman Lan to the examination hall. The 5th prince, Ning Jing, personally came to see him off. "You don't have to force yourself this time. Just do your best." Lan Ling heard this and bowed. "Your Highness, please rest assured, I will not disappoint you." Watching the carriage depart, Ning Jing's heart was also filled with mixed emotions. Everyone had witnessed Lan Ling's learning ability over the past month. He believed that with Shinlang's guidance, he would surely pass the civil examination smoothly this time. 2 hours later, the sky was bright. At this time, the examination hall gate was already crowded with countless candidates. The moment the carriage of the Marquis of Hongping's mansion appeared, it attracted countless resentful gazes from the scholars. An hour before the examination began, Madman Lan walked towards the examination hall with an arrogant swagger. Wherever he passed, the scholars avoided him as if he were a plague, afraid of being tainted by his bad luck. Soon, after a series of body searches and inspections, all the candidates entered the examination hall one after another. As the bronze gong sounded, the first examination, scriptural recitation, and arithmetic, officially began. The official from the Ministry of Rights then began to distribute the scriptural recitation papers. Lan Ling took the paper and quickly scanned it, seeing that there were a total of 90 questions on the paper. For an ordinary candidate, at least half of the questions were extremely difficult, and the last 20% of the annotation questions were so obscure that even the examiner might not have known the exact answers before setting them. But for him, who had been specially trained by Shinlang, they were practically free points. Immediately, he finished all 90 questions in less than 2/4 of an hour, and his accuracy rate was an astonishing 100%. Next was arithmetic, which the scholars were more resistant to. This arithmetic was similar to modern higher mathematics, difficult to learn and with low scores. The questions were taken from classics such as the mathematical classic, the three-part numbers, and the art of mending, totaling 30 questions. And Lanling's arithmetic talent was already extraordinary, and with the equations and practical geometry that Shinlang had recently taught him, the problems before him were now a piece of cake. He finished all of them in less than 1/4 of an hour. Afterward, he lazily yawned and muttered to himself, "Doing these problems is an insult to my intelligence." He then lay down on the table and dozed off. Lanling finished the first exam in less than an hour, but the surrounding candidates, seeing him sleeping, all showed contempt and sneered. As expected, a beggar can't be polished, no matter how much he pretends. He started sleeping just after the exam began. He's a disgrace to the Marquis of Hongping's mansion and a disgrace to His Majesty. Time quickly passed to the next day, and the second exam was on current affairs policy. At this time, the other candidates were secretly worried about the difficulty of the sovereign's questions, while Lanling was focusing on trying to figure out the imperial will. He knew very well that the current imperial examination of the Great Flame Empire placed the greatest emphasis on policy essays. If the policy essay was brilliant, there was hope for the entire examination, but if it failed, then even if the other two parts were well done, it was basically hopeless. The gong for the start of the exam sounded again, and when Lanling picked up the paper and saw the topic, he almost laughed out loud. It was on the feudal system. He never thought that as soon as Sunan was eliminated, His Majesty would be so eager to use the exam question to declare the victory of the new policy. It would be reasonable if this question were set by the Great Flame Emperor, as the new policy of the Great Flame was implemented very smoothly, but in the Yu Kingdom, to be honest, it was quite a failure. However, he also understood that the core of the new policy was to weaken the power of local nobles and thereby strengthen the central authority. For other candidates, if they did not understand His Majesty's temper, any slight deviation in their policy essays would surely provoke the dragon's wrath. But he was different. Among the 1,000 policy essays Shinlang had given him, there happened to be one corresponding to the feudal system. Then next, let him show off his literary talent and write a brilliant on feudalism. It was a perfect fit for the current political situation in the Yu Kingdom, and all he needed to do was replace the figures in the text with the historical heroes of the Great Flame Dynasty to answer the question. He also had to thoroughly understand the sovereign's thoughts. After all, he was now representing the fifth prince, Ning Jing, and every word he wrote carried Ning Jing's stance. Therefore, he had to be in complete political alignment with the sovereign in his heart. "My most noble and supreme majesty, although the crown prince resembles you, and the third prince, Ning Chi, is exceptionally talented, in terms of political direction, they may not be of the same mind and heart as you. Only the fifth prince, Ning Jing, who builds the nation and secures the state, has always abided by your ruling strategy, and only he can completely inherit your various policies." With this thought settled, Lanling felt his literary inspiration flowing like a spring. The wolf hair brush in his hand fell, and the ink spread on the paper like clouds and smoke. It is not that there was no desire to abolish it, but that the circumstances did not permit it. The coming of circumstances, was it not from the beginning of human existence? Without the beginning, there would have been no feudalism. Feudalism was not the intention of the sages. Once the magnificent and heart-stirring essay began, it was difficult to stop. An hour later, Lanling finally put down his brush. The policy essay, over 2,000 words long, was written in one go. He was certain that this time it was a sure thing. "I don't believe there is anyone in this examination hall who can write a policy essay better than this one. When the poetry and prose examination begins tomorrow, if I'm lucky enough, I'm sure to win the top prize this time." He then yawned again. Nothing more to do, might as well take another nap. With that thought, he lay down on the table and fell into a deep sleep, and this time, his loud snores immediately attracted the dissatisfaction of the surrounding candidates. This madman Lan. It was one thing to sleep during the exam on the first day, but today is the current affairs policy essay, which the sovereign values most, and he is shamelessly sleeping here. This kind of behavior was simply a show of disrespect to His Highness. At this moment, Lanling's snoring also attracted the attention of the proctor. The examiner saw this but did not wake him up, only frowning and sneering inwardly. That self-proclaimed noble Shinlang, to find such a good-for-nothing to take the exam, Ning Jing and His Majesty's faces will be completely disgraced. Thinking of this, he snorted coldly and turned to continue his patrol. After all, in his opinion, after the results were announced this time, Shinlang and these good-for-nothings would surely be thrown into prison. The next day, the final examination of poetry and prose officially began. The success or failure of this examination was equally crucial. Lanling, having received the examination paper, quickly entered a state of trying to fathom the monarch's mind. He thought to himself, poetry has 6 principles. First, feng, airs. Second, fu, narration. Third, bai, comparison. Fourth, xing, effective image. Fifth, ya, elegies. And sixth, song, odes. Feng, ya, and song are 3 types of poetry, while fu, bai, and xing are 3 writing techniques. And the question question the sovereign has posed obviously has a particularly deep meaning. The wild goose is a creature that exists in reality, while the great peng bird is a fictional creature from ancient legends. The sovereign has always had a high opinion of himself, originally wanting to be the great peng sage monarch praised by the people, but in recent years, his luck has been poor, and he seems more like a wild goose with broken wings. From this perspective, the sovereign's true purpose in setting the question might be to express that all kings under heaven are mortals, all have flaws, just like the wild geese in reality, and the thousand-year enlightened monarchs like the great peng bird that people fantasize about do not exist in reality at all. As his thoughts reached this point, a corresponding poem and prose gradually formed in Lanling's mind, and he was instantly overjoyed. In all of Great Yu, only young Master Shin can so thoroughly understand the sovereign's mind. To be able to guess such a tricky poetry and prose topic, only a divine person like him could do it. Immediately after, Lanling wrote as if guided by a god, beginning to adapt Li Bai's work, with the autumn goose as the theme of the poem. A quarter of an hour later, when he put down his pen and read through the ode again, he was still deeply shaken. Young Master Shin was able to blend the essence of the peng bird ode with the sovereign's thoughts so perfectly. Such talent is truly unmatched in this world. After the excitement, he once again turned the paper over, and then, with a smile, he drowsily fell asleep. The proctor at the side, seeing this, still had a disdainful look on his face, snorted coldly, and turned to leave. In his opinion, Lanling, this good-for-nothing, was already a dead man. That afternoon, with the sound of a gong, the 3-day civil examination officially ended. The candidates put down their pens, and to prevent cheating, hundreds of soldiers immediately came forward to lead the candidates away and cover the names on the examination papers. Then, under the joint supervision of the examiners and soldiers, all the candidates left the examination hall one after another. Outside the examination hall, even though the candidates were already exhausted, upon seeing Lanling, they still couldn't help but mock him. Just wait, Shinlang and that madman Lan are dead for sure. Lanling paid no attention. An hour later, he returned to Ning Jing's mansion in high spirits. Shinlang and the others had been waiting outside the mansion for a long time. Upon seeing Lanling, he yawned and asked perfunctorily, "Your exam is all over. How do you feel?" Lanling smiled. "If there are no surprises, the top spot this time is mine." As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Jing and the others were shocked. "What a joke! Lanling, what right do you have to be so sure you can take the top spot?" Shinlang, however, asked very calmly, "What were the questions on this exam?" Lanling replied respectfully, "Young Master Shin is truly prescient. The policy essay topic this time was indeed on the feudal system, and for the poetry and prose topic, I adapted Autumn Goose and the Great Peng Ode." As soon as these words were spoken, a trace of surprise also flashed through Shinlang's heart. It seemed he had really guessed Ning Yuanxian's thoughts. Now that Su Nan had been exterminated and the Yu Kingdom had won a great victory on the front line, he was so eager. However, the fact that the exam questions happened to fit those historical masterpieces was also a matter of luck. Thinking of this, he turned to Ning Jing, cupped his hands, and congratulated him. "Your Highness, Lanling's words are not an exaggeration. In this examination, he will surely take the top spot." Hearing this, Ning Jing was still puzzled. "Shinlang, do you know of the Zhu family's Zhu Hongping? This man is recognized as the #1 scholar in our Yu Kingdom. Are you really sure Lanling's policy essay in poetry and prose can surpass his?" Shinlang smiled meaningfully. Now the outside world is waiting to see Lanling fail, so they have a reason to slap His Majesty's face. In this way, His Majesty will surely hope that Lanling can pass, so both the examiners and the final decision makers will be on our side. The reason Shinlang did not directly answer Ning Jing's question was that he knew in his heart that even if that so-called #1 scholar Zhu Hongping was amazing, could he really compare to the great masters of history like Lu Zongyuan and Jia Yi? As soon as the special civil examination ended, the news that Lanling had slept through all 3 sessions in the examination hall reached the ears of the sovereign, Ning Yuanxian. Ning Yuanxian was furious. "Very well, this Lanling is truly worthy of being trained by Shinlang, daring to be so lawless." Immediately, he instructed Lian, "After the grading is finished, you go to the examination hall and retrieve Madman Lan's examination paper for me. If it's a blank paper, go and have his head chopped off." After venting his anger, Ning Yuanxian forced himself to calm down and turned to ask, "How are the negotiations with the Chu Kingdom now?" Seeing the sovereign's lingering anger, Lian hurriedly bowed and said with a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, the envoy sent back news that the negotiations are extremely difficult. The Chu Kingdom is denying everything, not only refusing to admit their mistake, pay compensation, or withdraw their troops, but also wanting us to compensate them, claiming that it was our Yu Kingdom that started the war." As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Yuanxian's anger was once again ignited. He cursed, "King of Chu, you old scoundrel! My Yu Kingdom and the Wu Kingdom have already signed an alliance, and the Su family's rebel army has been completely wiped out. This time it is clearly my Yu Kingdom that has won a great victory, yet you still dare to make such outrageous demands. If you are not mad, then you have other plans." After a pause, he suddenly changed the subject. "How is the situation in the southern Ouyang Kingdom?" Lian thought for a moment and replied, "At present, the southern Ouyang Kingdom is very calm on the surface, but both General Zhu Lin and Princess Ning Luo have mentioned in their their memorials that they seemed to have sensed an unusual atmosphere. Ning Yuanxian heard this and his brows furrowed. Could it be that the Chu Kingdom and the Southern Ouyang Kingdom have secretly colluded? Thinking of this, he immediately issued a stern order: relay my verbal order, speed up the negotiation process, and ensure that the Chu Kingdom compromises and withdraws its troops within a short period of time. The compensation can be a symbolic payment of 500,000 gold coins, which can also be paid over 3 years. But he must admit his mistake to me. This is the final bottom line. You will handle the negotiations personally. I will entrust the matter of going to the examination hall to check the grading to you. If that Lan Ling has indeed submitted a blank paper, immediately send someone to Ning Jing's mansion and have him executed on the spot. Meanwhile, inside the examination hall, all the examiners were fervently reviewing the candidates' papers. For essays with crude language, they often just glanced at them before casually tossing them on the floor. At that moment, the chief examiner, the right vice minister of the Ministry of Rights, was tossing papers aside while complaining to himself. The essays these candidates write are getting worse with each generation. Having to pick 100 names for the honor roll from over 1,000 students is like trying to pick a general from a pile of eggplants. It gets more difficult every time. Just as he was feeling frustrated, the examiner with the surname Zhao next to him suddenly slammed his hand on the desk and stood up. The abrupt commotion startled the right vice minister so much that the paper in his hand fell to the floor with a slap. He was about to complain when he saw Examiner Zhao shout excitedly, "Chief Examiner, esteemed colleagues, please put down the papers in your hands and look at this one. It will definitely be a breath of fresh air for everyone." A moment later, the right vice minister took the paper and several examiners crowded behind him. As soon as the paper was unfolded, everyone recognized the handwriting as that of Zhu Hongping, the #1 scholar of the Yu Kingdom. After browsing through it, everyone was instantly shocked and full of praise. Young Master Zhu is truly worthy of being the #1 scholar of our Yu Kingdom. He answered 88 out of 90 scriptural recitation questions correctly and 29 out of 30 arithmetic questions correctly. Zhang Zishu, the chief of staff of the Grand Commander's office in the Northern Sky Province, answered 115 questions correctly in the Metropolitan Examination 15 years ago, becoming that year's top scholar. Now Zhu Hongping has broken this record. It will likely be decades before anyone can surpass it. At this point, the right vice minister eagerly opened Zhu Hongping's policy essay. In an instant, the examiners let out another wave of gasps. This policy essay has a clear viewpoint, profound intention, and refined language with precise use of allusions. Who would have thought that such a masterful policy essay could come from the hand of a 17-year-old boy? Finally, the right vice minister opened the poetry and prose section and found that Zhu Hongping had also written a poem on the theme of autumn goose and an ode inspired by the Great Peng. When the examiners read the content, they all sighed in admiration. Truly a heaven-sent talent. Young Master Zhu is undoubtedly the deserving top scholar of this session. It's just that after seeing his essay in poetry, the papers of the other candidates are truly hard to look at. The right vice minister picked up his brush and drew a heavy circle on the paper, indicating that all examiners had unanimously approved this paper and no further discussion was needed. Not long after, Lian arrived at the examination hall by order and asked as he entered, "Esteemed examiners, have you seen anyone submit a blank paper during your grading?" The right vice minister hurried forward and replied respectfully, reporting to Uniquely, "We have not yet seen a blank paper. If we find one later, we will report it to you immediately." Lian nodded slightly. "Then I must trouble you, my lords." After seeing Lian off, Examiner Zhao said quietly, "It seems the news of that madman Lan sleeping in the examination hall has reached His Majesty's ears. If he really submitted a blank paper this time, I'm afraid his life is forfeit." Hearing this, the right vice minister sneered. "That fellow Shinlang has become arrogant due to his favor. This time, he has openly betrayed His Majesty's grace and trust. I'm afraid even that worthless prince, Ning Jing, will be implicated. Will they be able to withstand His Majesty's thunderous wrath?" He then turned to the other examiners and said, "All right, everyone, His Majesty's thoughts are not for us to speculate on. Let's all focus on grading the papers." Time flew, and soon it was the third watch of the night. Seeing that everyone was looking tired, the right vice minister raised his voice and shouted, "Everyone, cheer up. Just a little more effort, and today's grading will be over in half an hour." At this moment, the first deputy examiner from the Hanlin Academy was so sleepy his eyelids were drooping. "No, can't sleep, just a little longer." His fingers were just mechanically checking answers against the reference, but the accuracy rate of the paper in front of him suddenly jolted him awake. What's going on? All 90 scriptural recitation questions and 30 arithmetic questions on this paper are correct. Even the two most difficult and obscure questions were answered correctly. This is too outrageous. No, maybe he's just a lopsided talent who excels at scriptural recitation and arithmetic. This must be a candidate who is very good at arithmetic and scriptural recitation but weak in other areas. The most important parts of the imperial examination are the policy essay and poetry and prose. With this thought, his sleepiness vanished. He gulped down a cup of refreshing tea and then impatiently turned to look at this candidate's policy essay paper. But after reading only a few lines, he completely froze, his eyes filled with shock. Where on earth did this prodigy come from? This essay, on the feudal system is written so well. No, good can't even describe it. It's a thunderous masterpiece of a century. The research is solid, the intention is profound, and the content is not something an ordinary candidate could write. Compared to Zhu Hongping's policy essay, it's like comparing clouds to mud. The difference in level is immediately apparent. Immediately after, he hurriedly went to look at the poetry and prose. When he saw the line, "That which abandons me, yesterday's day cannot be kept, that which troubles my heart, today's day is full of sorrow," in the Autumn Goose poem, he couldn't help but gasp, and his heart trembled uncontrollably. Such exquisite words. How could a mortal write them? This is clearly a reincarnated immortal. He then steadied himself, took a deep breath, and suddenly raised the paper high and shouted to the crowd, "Everyone, Zhu Hongping won't get first place. The paper in my hand should be the undisputed top scorer. If anyone dares to rank him second, I will storm into the royal palace with the paper and ask His Highness for judgment." As soon as he spoke, the whole room was in an uproar. Someone frowned and retorted, "My lord, you can't say such things. We have all seen Zhu Hongping's paper. How could there possibly be a work that surpasses his policy essay in poetry and prose in the examination hall?" The deputy examiner, seeing that no one believed him, anxiously stuffed the paper into their hands. "Don't argue with me. If you don't look at it today, you will regret missing such a masterpiece in the future." Although the crowd was reluctant, they still gave him face and gathered to look. But the next second, they all gasped in unison. How is this possible? Scriptural recitation and arithmetic are all correct. Since the establishment of the imperial examination, has there ever been such a heaven-defying score? At this point, the men no longer cared about their dignity and all scrambled to see the policy essay in poetry and prose. The right vice minister at the side, who had been maintaining a haughty air, couldn't sit still when he saw the scene and went over to take a look, but his mouth still carried a hint of disdain. A bunch of inexperienced fools. So what if he got all the arithmetic questions right? The imperial examination selects talent for governing the country, relying on the real skill of policy essays in poetry and prose, not on solving problems. With that, he took the paper. However, the moment he finished reading the policy essay, the disdain on his face was replaced by shock. How is this possible? In comparison, if Zhu Hongping's policy essay is a rare masterpiece, then this one is a century-defining work that could be engraved in the court for all officials to study. In this poetry and prose, its literary talent is destined to be passed down for generations. After reviewing Lanling's examination paper, all the examiners in the examination hall were utterly stunned, especially the chief examiner, the right vice minister, who was frozen on the spot after comparing it with Zhu Hongping's paper. This was going to be a major incident. The Zhu family had held Zhu Hongping back for 2 examination cycles to ensure he would become famous in one fell swoop. Now, in his first attempt, he was about to lose the top spot. The Zhu family would likely find this unacceptable. At this moment, an examiner suggested, "Chief examiner, why don't we break the seal on this file and see who it is?" Hearing this, the right vice minister flatly refused. "Absolutely not. Rules are rules. We must determine the ranking before we can break the seal." The examiners had to give up, but their curiosity still made them unable to resist discussing it. "Everyone, do you think the questions might have been leaked?" A plump examiner immediately retorted, "Leaking the questions is absolutely impossible, but the accuracy rate of this paper is indeed a bit unbelievable. To get all the scriptural recitation and arithmetic questions right is unprecedented, and the writing level of this policy essay in poetry and prose is not something that could be improvised in the examination hall. But this time, the Zhu family is determined to have Zhu Hongping win the top spot. If we name him second, I'm afraid it will cause a huge uproar." As soon as he finished speaking, the first deputy chief examiner angrily rebuked, "What do you mean? Are you trying to force Zhu Hongping into first place? I will never agree to that. If you really do that, I will immediately withdraw from the examination board and resign to His Highness." Seeing this, the plump examiner hurriedly stepped forward to persuade him. "You must not be impulsive. How about this? We present both papers in their entirety to His Majesty and let him decide between them." As soon as this suggestion was made, the right vice minister fell silent. After much thought, he said, "At this point, this is indeed the most prudent solution. I will go and report to Uniquely now." The next morning, Lian brought the 2 examination papers to the sovereign's bedchamber. At this time, Ning Yuanxian was about to have his meal. Seeing him enter, he put down his silver chopsticks and asked in a deep voice, "Did you find anything in the examination hall last night?" Lian bowed and replied, "Your Majesty, I did not find any blank papers. However, the examiners discovered 2 exceptionally outstanding papers that were too difficult to distinguish between, so they had this servant bring them back for your Majesty to make the final decision." "Nonsense." Ning Yuanxian's face immediately darkened, his tone laced with a hint of impatience. "What are the people in the examination hall doing? It's not the palace examination. They need me to decide the ranking for such a small matter." But as his voice fell, he suddenly paused, and a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that the boy Zhu Hongping made a mistake, allowing Shinlang's people to slip through? After some thought, he still had Lian present the papers to him. Opening the first policy essay, he recognized it as Zhu Hongping's writing. After all, as Zhu Hongping's uncle, he had watched him grow up and was naturally very familiar with his writing style. At this moment, looking at the policy essay in his hand, Ning Yuanxian was very pleased. This policy essay, on the feudal system, criticism was completely in line with his own thoughts, logically tight and thoroughly argued. Such a good article should undoubtedly be at the top of the list. But he couldn't help but frown and think to himself, with such a good article, why would these examiners send it to me for a decision? Is it because Zhu Hongping is my nephew and the Prime Minister Zhu's grandson that you don't even dare to give him the top spot? With this doubt, he began to look at the other examination paper. However, the next second, his pupils constricted. All 120 questions of scriptural recitation and arithmetic were correct. Then what about this person's policy essay? He impatiently opened the policy essay, and the more he read, the more alarmed he became. By the end, he suddenly stood up, his hand holding the paper trembling slightly. How is this possible? Every sentence in this article is written as if it were dissecting my own thoughts. It even addresses the omissions I hadn't considered. This policy essay can be called far-sighted and masterful. It's not an exaggeration to say it could directly replace the previous new policy edict and be proclaimed to the world. He then took a deep breath and turned his gaze to the poetry and prose. It was only at this moment that Ning Yuanxian completely understood the examiner's dilemma. Everyone already knew in their hearts who should be the top scorer, but due to Zhu Hongping's identity, they had pushed this hot potato onto him. But when did the Yu Kingdom produce such a prodigy? Puzzled, Ning Yuanxian turned to Lian and asked, which candidate wrote this paper? Lian bowed and replied, Your Majesty, according to the rules, the seal cannot be broken before the grading is finished, so this servant cannot know the candidate's identity. Hearing this, Ning Yuanxian was stunned, and a guess suddenly came to mind. He composed himself and said in a deep voice, Go to Ning Jing's mansion and bring that man named Madman Lan, that Lan Ling, to me. I have something to ask him. Half an hour later, Lan Ling knelt trembling before the sovereign. This commoner pays respects to your majesty. Ning Yuanxian glanced at him sideways. You really love to act, just like that little rascal Shinlang. You dare to sleep so openly in the examination hall, yet you're afraid when you see me? He then gave Lian a look, signaling him to hand over the paper, and asked, Do you recognize this paper? Lan Ling hurriedly cowed out and said, It is this commoner's. As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Yuanxian was both shocked and overjoyed. He was shocked that this madman Lan truly had such talent. He was overjoyed because, for some time now, censors had been impeaching him daily in court over Shinlang's recommendation of beggars for the imperial examination, believing his decision to be absurd. Now that Lan Ling had made a stunning debut, he had a reason to shut the mouths of all the officials. But in an instant, Ning Yuanxian frowned. Why couldn't he be happy? With Madman Lan's background as a beggar, how could he be worthy of writing such poetry and policy essays? And how could he be so in tune with my thoughts? The more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he became, and he suddenly shouted, Bold Lan Ling, tell me the truth. Did you cheat in this examination? If you lie, I will have you executed by 1,000 cuts. Lan Ling was so frightened he was on the verge of losing his soul. He trembled and begged for mercy. I implore your majesty to be lenient. This poetry and policy essay were indeed not written by this commoner. They were all written in advance by young Master Shin, and this commoner just memorized them and copied them down. As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Yuanxian was overjoyed. So it is. As expected, only this little villain can write works that stir my soul. In this world, only he is worthy of being my confidant. The sovereign then pretended to be calm, took a sip of tea to suppress the surging joy in his heart, and asked again, how could Shinlang write this policy essay and poetry in advance? Did he bribe the examiners and know the questions beforehand? Lan Ling hurriedly explained, No, it was young Master Shin who prepared over 1,000 policy essays and 3,000 poems in advance for this commoner to memorize. It's just that the questions this time happened to be among them. As soon as these words were spoken, the sovereign's face was filled with disbelief. Is this Shinlang kid a monster? He can write over 1,000 high-quality policy essays and poems, and Lan Ling, he managed to get all the scriptural recitation and arithmetic questions right, which means that in 1 month, he not only memorized the 4 books and 5 classics in the arithmetic subjects, but also memorized so many poems and policy essays. Is this something a normal person can do? After a long silence, Ning Yuanxian instructed Lian, go get a book, find a chapter of 5,000 words, and give Lan Ling 1 incense stick's time to memorize it. Unexpectedly, as soon as Lan received the book, he immediately entered a strange state, as if his mind were a recording machine, rapidly engraving the contents of the book into his memory. After a quarter of an hour, Lian stepped forward and said, Time is up. Mr. Lan, please return the book to me. After Lian handed the book to the sovereign, he ordered Lan to begin reciting. A moment later, the sovereign muttered to himself with a look of utter shock, My heavens, how on earth did Shinlang find such a genius? He can actually memorize everything he sees, without a single mistake. However, at this moment, the sovereign once again fell into deep thought, comparing Lan Ling's paper to Zhu Hongping's. A discerning eye could tell at a glance which was superior. But if he were to make Lan the top scholar, although he could vent his anger and save face, it would surely cause a huge uproar throughout the Yu Kingdom. Most importantly, the original author of Lan's policy essay and poetry was Shinlang. If Lan himself had no real talent, he would be exposed with the slightest probing from others. At that point, it would not just be a matter of losing face, it would escalate into a major case of examination fraud. Thinking of this, he tentatively asked, Lan Ling, if I were to ask you to write a policy essay and a poem in prose yourself, Would you be confident? Lan Ling hesitated for a moment, then bowed and replied, "This commoner is willing to try. I ask your majesty to set the topic." Seeing this, Ning Yuanxian said in a deep voice, "Good. Then take on factions as the topic for the policy essay. For the poetry and prose, choose from the Book of Songs. The 7th month. In the 7th month, the fire star passes the meridian. In the 9th month, clothes are handed out. Use these 2 lines to compose a poem and an ode, respectively. Go. Give him a table and prepare a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone for him." At this moment, looking at Lian preparing the writing materials for him, Lan could roughly guess the sovereign's concerns. And although he had many drafts in his mind, he also knew that this time he absolutely could not just copy the poems and essays Shinlang had prepared. He had to win His Majesty's approval with his own real talent. It had to be outstanding enough, but he also had to control the measure, not be too dazzling. Once everything was ready, Lan Ling focused his mind for a moment and began to write furiously. In less than an hour, he had written a 1,000-character policy essay, as well as a poem and an ode. Lian immediately stepped forward, took back the examination paper, and respectfully presented it to the sovereign. As Ning Yuanxian read the paper in his hand, his tightly furrowed brows gradually relaxed. He hadn't expected Lan's literary talent to be quite good. The sentences were beautiful and elegant, and the allusions were used precisely and appropriately. It could be considered a first-rate essay. It was just that upon closer inspection, it seemed to lack a certain soul that struck the heart. Compared to Shinlang's writing, it was more than just a little bit off. But on second thought, the talent Lan had now displayed was already stable enough. The article could withstand repeated scrutiny, and there was no need to worry about being exposed. Besides, Lan's essays and poems originated from Shinlang, and thus represented that little rascal. How could he let him be second? Ning Yuanxian gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind. The top spot will be given to Lan Ling. Even if it causes a public uproar in the future, I have no need to fear. Thinking of this, he raised his head, waved his hand, and said, "Lan Ling, I have already made my choice in my heart. You may go back now." After Lan Ling left, Ning Yuanxian could no longer suppress the joy in his heart and burst out laughing, looking up at the sky. "Good. Excellent. I can't wait to see the shocked expressions on the faces of the world when the list is announced. This time, I'd like to see what the censors and those shameless candidates have to say." He then turned to Lian and instructed, "Go to the examination hall and relay my verbal order. In the selection of officials through the imperial examination, fairness and justice are of the utmost importance. Whoever deserves the top spot gets it. There is no need to consider the candidate's identity. Everything is judged by the quality of the essays and poems. Also, send guards from the Blackwater platform to strictly guard the examination hall before the results are announced. Not a whisper of this matter is to get out." Lian immediately understood, bowed, and after leaving the study, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. His Majesty's wicked sense of humor is truly strong. It seems this time he is going to join forces with Shinlang to give the world a big slap in the face. However, I am also looking forward to seeing the wonderful expressions on the faces of those censors in the court. At this moment, in the imperial study, the sovereign, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, had another matter weighing on his mind: the military examination. That Lan was well-read and had a photographic memory and could memorize and apply the policy essays and poems written by Shinlang, but the ones participating in the military examination were 10 half-crippled beggars. To create a miracle would be harder than ascending to heaven. No. As his thoughts turned, a meaningful and mischievous smile suddenly appeared on Ning Yuanxian's slightly frowning face. "Since that boy Shinlang could create a miracle like Lan, I believe you will not disappoint me in the military examination either." Time flew by, and soon it was the day of the special imperial military examination. Wuai still led her female soldiers, clearing the way at the front, escorting a dozen or so carriages that proceeded with great fanfare. The sounds of mockery and scorn along the way were as incessant as ever. As they approached the gate of the examination hall, Wuai suddenly shouted loudly, "Carriages! Halt! Everyone, get out of the carriages!" As her voice fell, when the 10 Lan brothers got out of the carriages, everyone present was stunned. Who were these men with their straight postures and a powerful aura? And where were the 10 crippled beggars who couldn't even get up from the ground before? At this moment, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "Chief Examiner, someone is taking the exam in their place. The 10 men Shinlang chose are all crippled beggars, not these men." Hearing someone report, the chief examiner, the vice minister of the Ministry of War, walked over quickly. After a glance at the men before him, he roared without a second word, "Men, immediately verify their identities." As soon as the order was given, a clerk came over with portraits and began to compare them with the men's faces one by one. Shin 13, seeing this from behind, felt his heart leap into his throat. Oh no, the appearances of the 10 Lan brothers have all changed now. Will they not pass the inspection? However, Shinlang had a calm expression on his face. He knew very well that in this world, it was impossible to accurately identify someone by face alone. When they were unsure, they would use fingerprint verification, and fingerprints could not be faked. So as long as their fingerprints matched, it was okay. Sure enough, at this moment, the chief examiner gave another order: "Men, verify their fingerprints." A while later, the clerks responsible for the verification all waved their hands to signal, "Fingerprint comparison is correct. Identity verification passed." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd became even more furious, all believing that Shinlang had bribed the examiner and cheated. The vice minister of the Ministry of War, listening to the discussions of the crowd around him, also felt a sense of doubt, so he stepped forward and asked, "If the fingerprints are consistent, why is there such a large discrepancy in their appearances?" The clerk hurriedly explained, "Reporting to my lord, if you look closely, you can see that their facial features are actually consistent with the portraits. It's just that for some unknown reason, it's as if a child has suddenly grown up, and their temperament and posture have changed." The vice minister of the Ministry of War had never encountered such a strange thing before. Helplessly, he could only look at Lien beside him. Uniquely, "What do you think should be done in this situation?" Lien smiled sheepishly. "Chief Examiner, you don't need to ask me about this matter. I'm just here to watch the show. You can just handle everything according to the regulations." Hearing this, the vice minister of the Ministry of War immediately understood and roared, "The identity verification of these 10 men has passed. Now, call them by name to enter the examination hall in order." Lan 1, Lan 2. As the names were called out, a burst of laughter erupted from the crowd. A beggar is a beggar. Even their names are like those of cats and dogs. A beggar is a beggar. At most, they can only practice. They'll never be presentable. At this moment, a man with shifty eyes sneered, "That's right. So what if these good-for-nothings have changed their appearance? It's only been a month. They probably can't even stand in a horse stance, right? After the exam is over, everyone can just wait to see these 11 good-for-nothings lose their heads." The first day's assessment was a measure of strength, and 3,000 candidates entered the trial grounds at the same time. The first item was to lift a stone lock weighing 265 kilograms. This weight, which was considered as difficult as ascending to heaven for others, was a piece of cake for the 10 Lan brothers. Several of them lifted the stone lock steadily over their heads with a single arm, their movements as smooth as flowing water, without a hint of strain, leaving the examiners on the sidelines speechless. The announcement that the 10 Lan brothers had passed this test was heard, and the candidate who had previously boasted and mocked the 10 Lan brothers was now both shocked and angry. "Are these guys monsters? They can lift a 265-kilogram stone with one arm? This is not something a human can do." Immediately after a short rest, the second assessment began, a 100-meter uphill sprint with weights. The gong sounded, and the 10 Lan brothers immediately rushed out like wild horses that had broken their reins. Their speed not only amazed the examiners but also shocked the candidate who had made sarcastic remarks so much that he forgot he was also in the middle of the exam. Thus, the 10 Lan brothers, as expected, successfully passed the first day's examination, and the 3,000 candidates had been eliminated down to just over 1,000. The next morning, the second archery examination began. Similar to the first, this examination was also divided into two parts. The first part was fixed target shooting. Candidates needed to shoot all the arrows in their hands within the specified time, and then the examiners would count the number of rings hit and the force of the arrows. If the force was too strong and shot through the target or missed the target, it was considered poor force control and points would be deducted. Soon, the 10 Lan brothers quickly took their positions, and the candidate who had been unwilling to give up before once again came over to watch. He refused to believe it. So what if their strength and endurance were outstanding? This archery depended on experience and skill. In just 1 month, they probably couldn't even hit the target. When the gong sounded, the 10 Lan brothers quickly drew their bows and nocked their arrows. The next second, 10 arrows were released almost simultaneously, and with no suspense, they accurately hit the same spot in the center of the target. As the distant examiner raised his hand to signal and announced the scores of the 10 Lan brothers, that candidate was completely shocked, pointing at them with a trembling finger, unable to say a word for a long time, because this score was truly too outstanding. Immediately after, the second part of the moving target examination began. The rules required a soldier to hide in a trench and unexpectedly raise a moving target to test the candidate's reaction speed and accuracy. And the 10 Lan brothers naturally did not disappoint everyone. Their eyes were as sharp as eagles, and their actions of knocking and firing arrows were smooth and fluid, without any hesitation, with no suspense. All 10 arrows hit the center of the target. This time, all the candidates were shocked. How could these guys have learned archery when they were beggars before? Besides, with their half-crippled state at that time, they probably couldn't even draw a bow. But now, if hitting a fixed target was due to luck, then accurately hitting the center of a moving target with 10 arrows was due to real skill. Time quickly passed to the final examination. This one tested Saber's skills, and the performance of the 10 Lan brothers naturally did not disappoint the crowd. When the clay balls were thrown, they were seen on horseback, holding their sabers, and charging out fiercely. With a swift slash, they instantly shattered the clay balls. Immediately after, 10 more clay balls were thrown out at the same time, and the 10 Lan brothers, with no suspense, hit all of them. The entire examination, which was supposed to take half an hour, was perfectly completed by them in less than a quarter of an hour. The excitement of this examination completely convinced the other candidates of their defeat. After all, the strength of these 10 men was simply beyond human capability. Even the chief examiner, the vice minister of the Ministry of War, was shocked. What on earth have these 10 men experienced in the past month? Are they really the same homeless men from before? Soon, that afternoon, half an hour after the military examination ended, moment, the clerk presented the final rankings to the Vice Minister of the Ministry of War. Of the 3,000 candidates in this military examination, although only 50 were admitted, the strength of the 10 Lan brothers ensured that they all made the list. At this moment, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of War looked at the list in his hand, his heart filled with shock and doubt. How is this possible? All 10 of Shinlang's men passed with high marks, and 5 of them are in the top 10. Didn't they say before that Shinlang recruited half-crippled beggars? What on earth did that guy do in the past month? And how did he polish these 10 men to be so formidable? In a shock, he suddenly felt a deeper worry well up in his heart. Although Shuelu of the Shui family and Nandong Zong, Nandong Ao, had taken the top 2 spots in the military examination, the inclusion of the 10 Lan brothers had pushed 7 sons of generals beyond the top 20, and more than a dozen other sons of generals had failed. If the list were to be made public now, these people would probably cause an uproar. As he was pondering, the 2 clerks beside him also spoke with worried expressions. If we publish the list now, those failed martial artists will definitely believe that we cheated for the 10 Lan brothers, and they might even join forces to storm the Ministry of War. As soon as these words were spoken, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of War's heart was even more uncertain. Publish the list, and the consequences would be unpredictable. Don't publish it. And the strength of the 10 Lan brothers was indeed extraordinary, their rankings without a doubt. But this matter was of great importance, and he, a mere Vice Minister of the Ministry of War, couldn't make the decision. Just as he was caught in a dilemma, a flash of inspiration suddenly struck him. How could I have forgotten uniquely? He has been coming to observe the examination every day, which clearly shows that His Highness is extremely concerned about this military examination. Although I cannot bear the consequences of publishing this list, the Supreme Majesty can. Thinking of this, he immediately said in a deep voice, "Go and invite Uniquely." A moment later, as soon as Lian arrived, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of War came up to him with the list in a troubled expression. "Uniquely, please take a look at this list." Lian was initially unconcerned, but when he saw the rankings on the list, his expression changed drastically. They actually all passed with high marks. Seeing Lian's reaction, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of War quickly stepped forward and said, "Uniquely, do you think you could take this list to the palace and ask His Majesty to personally review and decide?" Hearing this, Lian couldn't help but feel a wave of contempt. This guy really knows how to talk. He's clearly afraid to publish the list himself and wants to pass the hot potato to His Majesty. With an attitude like this, you still want to enter the Ministry of State Affairs? After this incident, you probably won't even be able to get into the Ministry of Military Affairs. Suppressing his thoughts, Lian cleared his throat and replied with a blank expression, "All right, I will copy this list now and immediately return to the palace to present it to His Majesty." At the same time, the grading of the civil examination in the examination hall had officially concluded. After 3 days and 3 nights of meticulous review, the examiners finally selected 93 qualified papers from the many examination papers. After determining the rankings, the 6 examiners immediately gathered together, eager to reveal the name of the top scorer. Who on earth could surpass Hongping to win the top prize? When the examiners tore open the name cover of the top scorer's paper and saw the 2 characters Lan Ling, everyone looked puzzled. Who is this Lan Ling? After a long silence, an examiner suddenly exclaimed, "Isn't this Lan Ling Madman Lan?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. The chief examiner, the right vice minister, was struck as if by lightning, his worldview completely overturned. He muttered to himself, "Impossible. How is this possible? Lan Ling is Madman Lan? How could it be that beggar who has been homeless for more than a decade and has never had a proper education? Not only did he get the top score, but he also wrote a policy essay in poetry and prose that are rarely seen in a century. Am I crazy, or has the world gone mad?" At this moment, an examiner asked doubtfully, "Wasn't this Madman Lan sleeping during the examination?" The plump examiner at the side shook his head. No, he actually answered every section, just in a very short amount of time. Sometimes it was an hour, and sometimes it was even less than half an hour. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked again. An examiner pressed on. "He wrote this once-in-a-century policy essay in less than an hour?" Another examiner chimed in. "That means he only spent half an hour on scriptural recitation and arithmetic, and even less than 2/4 of an hour on poetry and prose? This is not a genius. He's a monster." After a brief shock, an examiner said in a deep voice, "Could it be that the exam questions were really leaked?" The deputy examiner immediately shook his head and denied it. Absolutely impossible. Besides, even if the exam questions were leaked, no one could write a classic policy essay like On the Feudal System, let alone masterpieces like Autumn Goose Poem and Peng Bird Ode. The sound of discussion behind him was endless, but the right vice minister remained silent. At this moment, his worries were the same as those of the vice minister of the Ministry of War. Madman Lan winning the top prize in the civil examination. Once this list was published, the entire capital would be in an uproar. The whole matter had already exceeded the scope that the Ministry of Rights could handle. After much thought, he suddenly stood up and said, "Everyone, let's report to His Majesty. In the current situation, only His Majesty's autocratic decision can settle the matter." In the evening, inside the royal palace, the sovereign Ning Yuanxian held the proposed lists for both the civil and military examinations, and a wave of unprecedented excitement surged through his heart. Shinlang, You kid are really something. You actually fulfilled your promise, not only getting those 10 disabled beggars to all pass with high marks, but also having Madman Lan win the top prize in the civil examination. Just as he was secretly rejoicing, Lian cautiously reported, Your Majesty, at present, the chief examiners for both the civil and military examinations are undecided. They specially request Your Majesty's autocratic decision to determine the final results. Before his voice had even faded, Ning Yuanxian sneered, What is there to be undecided about? This special examination was fair and just, without a hint of cheating. Just because the scores of these 11 beggars are too outstanding, am I supposed to fail them and yield to those mediocre and incompetent court officials? At this point, he stood up abruptly and waved his hand. What are you still standing there for? Immediately send a decree to the examination hall, ordering them to publish the lists at once, and both the civil and military lists must be posted together. I want the whole world to see this result. At this moment, Ning Yuanxian was too proud. For the past month, the censors in the court had been attacking him daily, their words sharp, just short of pointing at his nose and calling him a muddle-headed ruler. Now that the special examination had produced such a result, he could finally hold his head high. This time, he wanted the whole world to know that he, Ning Yuanxian, was the truly discerning and talented monarch, while you people were the blind and mediocre ones. At the same time, outside the examination hall, over 1,000 candidates had gathered at the gate, eagerly awaiting the announcement of the results. As the sky grew darker, the anxiety in the crowd also grew stronger. Everyone was wondering, in previous years, the results were announced at an hour. Why is it an hour late this year with no movement? Just then, a commotion suddenly came from the back of the crowd. A candidate at the front suddenly exclaimed, Look, it's the literary star, young master Zhu Hongping. As his voice fell, everyone looked in that direction and saw a handsome and elegant young man walking over from a distance. This person was the grandson of the Prime Minister, Zhu Hongzhu, and the nephew of the Queen of Yu, Zhu Hongping. All the candidates bowed in respect, whispering among themselves that they never expected young Master Zhu, as the #1 scholar of the Yu Kingdom, to have no heirs and to have come in person to see the results today. At this moment, someone in the back said in a low voice, This year's civil examination will undoubtedly go to young Master Zhu. That Madman Lan was sleeping during the examination. We all saw it. When the list is released, Shinlang and those 11 good-for-nothing beggars are probably going to be in big trouble. As he was speaking, the gong for the announcement of the results suddenly rang out. Someone in the distance shouted, Everyone, stop chatting. The results are out. What's going on? The civil and military lists are being posted together. There was no such rule before. As his voice fell, everyone swung forward. Squeeze me. Let me see if the first place is young Master Zhu. Zhu Hongping also walked over behind the crowd. He hadn't really come here to see the results. In his heart, the top spot was already in the bag. He had come this time only to show his approachable side. When he saw the ranking on the list, his pupils suddenly constricted. The top spot in the civil examination was clearly written with the 2 characters Lan Ling, and he was only ranked second. In an instant, Zhu Hongping felt his heart tighten. How is this possible? I, Zhu Hongping, should have been a sure bet for the top spot this time. In the entire Yu Kingdom, is there anyone who can write a better policy essay in poetry and prose than me? Besides, my grandfather didn't say he was going to suppress me this time. Just as he was stunned, the surrounding candidates had already fallen into chaos, all wondering who this Lan Ling was. Suddenly, someone shouted in Zhu Hongping's ear, This Lan Ling is Madman Lan. This sentence instantly exploded in Zhu Hongping's mind like a clap of thunder. Madman Lan got the top spot? Wasn't he sleeping during the exam? What on earth is going on? When the candidates heard that the top scorer was Madman Lan, they all flocked to the list to check. To their surprise, Madman Lan was indeed ranked first in the civil examination, becoming the capital's top scholar. Not only that, but the 10 Lan brothers who participated in the military examination had all passed with high marks. In an instant, the crowd's dissatisfaction erupted, and angry shouts rose one after another. The examination is unfair. The examiner must have taken a bribe from Shinlang and cheated. Otherwise, how could those 10 disabled people all pass with high marks after only 1 month of training? And that Madman Lan even made it to the honor roll? This is simply illogical. These words were like a huge stone thrown into a calm lake, instantly creating 1,000 waves. The crowd surrounded the examination hall, shouting for the examiner to come out and give an explanation. More than a dozen failed candidates went directly to Zhu Hongping, saying indignantly, Young Master Zhu, the top spot in this special civil examination should have been yours, but because Shinlang used underhanded tactics, the beggar Madman Lan took it. How unfair is that? Don't worry, we will all stand by you and will definitely get justice for you. Hearing this, Zhu Hongping became even more annoyed. These fools wanted to use him as a scapegoat. Did they really think he couldn't see through their little scheme? However, this examination was indeed strange. He had to go back and ask his grandfather what was going on. With this thought, he directly cupped his hands in a salute and said, Thank you all for your kind intentions, but the examination results have always been determined by the examiners based on the examination papers. I have no intention of arguing for now, so I will take my leave. Without waiting for the crowd to react, he turned and left. And these failed candidates, seeing their plan had failed, were not at all flustered. Relying on their large numbers, they simply picked up wooden sticks from the roadside and began to smash the main gate of the examination hall. In the blink of an eye, the situation on the scene was completely out of control. At this moment, someone loudly incited. It was Shinlang who bribed the examiner and cheated. Kill him! Kill Shinlang! Uphold the dignity of the sage and give us justice. As his voice fell, Wuai and the other female generals immediately protected Shinlang behind them, drew their long swords, and shouted sternly, "Anyone who dares to step forward will be killed without question." However, there were still some who were not afraid of death and just rushed forward. Seeing this, Wuai, without hesitation, brought her sword down, and the man instantly fell to the ground, dead. However, this blow not only did not deter the crowd, but completely ignited their anger. Although these people did not dare to rush forward easily anymore, they all roared that they would go to the central commander's office of Tianhua to file a complaint, accusing Shinlang not only of bribing the examiner but also of openly killing people in the market. Thus, with the disturbance of these several thousand candidates, the entire capital fell into a state of chaos and confusion, completely turning into a mess. The scene shifts to the Zhu family's residence. At this moment, Zhu Hongping, having shed his previous modest and gentlemanly appearance, knelt before his grandfather, Zhu Hongzhu, fully revealing the turmoil in his heart. "Grandfather, your grandson is not convinced. I have looked up to this for 4 years, determined to win the top prize in this special examination and to achieve the glory of winning 3 consecutive top prizes. But now I have lost to a beggar. Where can I show my face? Your grandson thinks there must be cheating involved, and I implore grandfather to investigate thoroughly for me." As his voice fell, Zhu Hongzhu sighed and said, "My dear grandson, the pride and arrogance in your bones are not a bad thing. The descendants of my Zhu family must have this unyielding spirit. However, although you got second place this time, your grandfather is actually quite happy." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhu Hongping was first stunned, then said unconvinced, "I could have gotten first place just because of my identity. Am I to be suppressed to second place? This is too hypocritical. If one lives so timidly, what is the point?" Zhu Hongzhu, seeing him so agitated, was not angry. He picked up Lanling's examination paper, handed it to him, and smiled. "My dear grandson, how is the policy essay in poetry and prose on this paper written, compared to yours? Which is higher and which is lower?" Zhu Hongping took the paper, his gaze sweeping over the ink on it. His face gradually turned from red to white, then from white to blue, and his whole body flushed with embarrassment. He looked at Zhu Hongzhu in disbelief. "Grandfather, was this really written by Madman Lan?" Hearing this, Zhu Hongzhu nodded. "Now do you think, comparing your policy essay in poetry and prose, which of his is better?" Zhu Hongping heard this and lowered his head in shame. "He wrote better than me, and much better." Zhu Hongzhu's expression became serious, and he continued to ask, "Then do you still think someone is deliberately suppressing you?" Zhu Hongping shook his head dejectedly. Zhu Hongzhu slowly said, "There are heavens beyond the heavens, and people beyond people. My dear grandson, although you are outstanding, you will inevitably encounter a monster. In fact, to say that there was cheating in this imperial examination is not entirely wrong. This policy essay in poetry and prose were not actually written by Lanling." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhu Hongping was shocked. It was him. But why didn't he take the imperial examination himself? Zhu Hongzhu shook his head. His Majesty said that Shinlang wrote several thousand policy essays and poems and had Lanling memorize them in advance, and the imperial examination does not prohibit guessing the questions. You did not lose unfairly. It's just that you lost not to Lanling, but to Shinlang. If he had taken the examination himself, you would still be second. At this point, Zhu Hongzhu paused, turned his head, and admonished, "My grandson, you must remember, this Shinlang is a troublemaker. Unless absolutely necessary, do not provoke him, but you also cannot get too close, lest you invite disaster." The atmosphere in the court meeting the next day was as heavy as iron. Many censors and civil and military officials had already rolled up their sleeves, ready for action. The recent turmoil in the capital was the perfect opportunity for them to add fuel to the fire and strip Shinlang's 11 beggar followers of their official titles. Why is it that we have to study the classics and practice martial arts diligently for over a decade just to earn the qualification to take the imperial examination? And you, Shinlang, just because you have His Highness's favor, can just find 11 beggars to take the imperial examination? Where is the justice in that? This is a clear slap in the face to us civil and military officials. Their emotions running high, a figure walked into the main hall. When the officials saw the person, they all stepped forward and bowed, their voices full of respect. "Prime Minister, you have finally come. With you here, everyone has a backbone. There must have been cheating in this imperial examination. It's impossible for 11 beggars to pass with high marks. You must seek justice for all the scholars in the world." Hearing this, Zhu Hongzhu's gaze swept lightly over the crowd, and then he said in a deep voice, "Everyone, please be patient. There is no need to rush to submit memorials of impeachment. I will bring this matter to His Majesty first." As soon as these words were spoken, all the officials were overjoyed. Great! The Prime Minister is His Majesty's father-in-law and has his deep trust. With him personally taking action, even if His Majesty favors Shinlang, he will likely have to compromise. This time, Shinlang is surely doomed. A moment later, after the sovereign ascended the throne, Lian, as usual, announced, "If you have a memorial to present it. If not, the court is dismissed." As his voice fell, Zhu Hongzhu stepped out and bowed, "Your Majesty, Majesty, this old minister has a memorial to present. Ning Yuanxian looked at him with a gentle expression. Prime Minister, please speak. Zhu Hongzhu said in a loud voice. Recently, there have been rumors that there was cheating in the civil and military special examinations. This old minister has thoroughly investigated the matter, and the so-called cheating is purely fictitious. It is just a group of petty people behind the scenes, stirring up trouble and inciting the failed candidates to cause disturbances. I implore your Majesty to severely punish those who spread rumors and create chaos. As soon as these words were spoken, all the civil and military officials in the court were shocked. What do you mean by this? The sovereign, however, smiled. Prime Minister, you are truly a wise and far-sighted statesman. Then let us follow the Prime Minister's proposal. Esteemed ministers, do you have any other opinions? Seeing this, how could the officials not understand that His Majesty and the Prime Minister had already communicated beforehand? How could anyone dare to object? Helplessly, they all bowed and agreed. Your Majesty is wise. We have no objections. Ning Yuanxian was very satisfied with the official's reaction. He nodded and then instructed the third prince, Ning Qi, since you are the central commander of Tianhua, I will leave this matter to you to handle. Also, Ning Jing, you will follow your third brother on this assignment. As the decree was issued, everyone was shocked. What does His Majesty mean? Ning Jing, that worthless prince, is actually getting a chance to handle official business? Could it be that he is really going to make a comeback this time? And although Ning Qi looked down on this worthless younger brother, he couldn't help but admire Shinlang. Shinlang, you really have some skills. You've caused such a huge mess. Yet not only have you not been punished, but you've even had the king and the prime minister support you in court, and you've actually gotten Ning Jing a position of importance. At this moment, the sovereign continued, Lian, you will lead the Imperial Guard to handle the situation on site. Then, you will make Lanling's examination paper public, so that the world knows that Ryu Kingdom's imperial examinations have always adhered to the principles of fairness and justice, and there is absolutely no cheating. An hour later, the army of the capital's central commander's office was dispatched and charged directly at the scholar's sacred temple. Within 2 hours, they had completely suppressed the rioting troublemakers. In an instant, the scene was a river of blood, with hundreds of corpses strewn across the ground, a gruesome sight to behold. And the candidates, forced to calm down, were also speechless with shock after reading Lanling's essay. This policy essay was written by Madman Lan. How is this possible? Keep your voice down. But such a well-written article, with every word a gem and insightful into the current situation. Even if someone wanted to cheat, it would be impossible to imitate. And next, the sovereign, who had been holding back for months, finally had an outlet for his emotions. He immediately ordered that the 19 ringleaders of the riot be stripped of their official titles, and that 135 people be banned from taking the examinations for life. All the scholars who were at the scene of the sacred temple were registered, and they would also have a lifelong stain on their records. At this moment, Lian looked coldly at these severely punished troublemakers, but there was not a trace of pity in his heart. A bunch of fools who followed the crowd and made a fuss. The article that Lan Ling wrote, you couldn't write it even if you cheated. What's more, Shinlang and the others have His Majesty's backing. By trying to challenge the monarch's authority, you are just seeking your own death. With punishment comes reward. However, just as Shinlang was secretly pleased with himself, Shin 13 rushed to report, Master, a spy has reported that the Prime Minister has recommended Lord Zhang Chong to be the subordinate commander of Yen Province. The sovereign has already agreed and has ordered him to leave the capital. As soon as these words were spoken, Shinlang was greatly shocked. What did you say? This Zhu Hongzhu actually recommended Zhang Chong? After the shock, he quickly calmed down and began to analyze Zhu Hongzhu's intentions. Previously, Zhang Chong had chosen to leave the Crown Prince's faction and join him in order to repay his life-saving grace. But in doing so, he had shouldered the crime of betraying the Crown Prince. Zhu Hongzhu's recommendation this time, although it spared Zhang Chong the death penalty for the crime of being a traitor, also made him tacitly draw a clear line with us and become an absolute neutral in the court. After all, if Zhang Chong refused to accept the order, the full force of the Zhu family's attack was something he could not withstand. Zhu Hongzhu, Shinlang sneered in his heart. It seems you, the Prime Minister, are truly a man of deep schemes.